Legends, welcome back to a Ruck Infringement Podcast interview. I'm your host, Joey, as always. Craig is joining me. Craig, how are you?
Good, thanks, Joey. Good to be on here. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, it's great to have you, mate. And joining us for a special interview today is Kerrod Walters. Kerrod, welcome to the podcast.
Joey and Craig, it's a pleasure to be here, boys.
The pleasure's all ours, mate. All right, let's get straight into it. Kerrod, the first thing we wanted to ask you was just to introduce yourself, who you played for, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, obviously, my name is Kerrod Walters. I played for the Brisbane Broncos for 210 games from 1988 to 1997. And I played for the Adelaide Rams from 97 and 98. Spent 12 months in England playing for the Gateshead Thunder in 1999 and had one more year at the Broncos in 2000. So, yeah, about 13 years of first grade. So I had a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah, great. I had a really interesting question straight up. Can you give us a funniest teammate that you played with?
Yeah. What's happening, Joey?
I don't know. It fully just went. I'm so sorry.
Did you get the first bit? You go from the start again?
Yeah, I got the first bit in, and then it cut. So we'll go from funniest teammate. So was there a funniest teammate that you ever played with, Kerrod?
Well, I have to say Alan Langer. Grew up with him in Ipswich, and Alf was just a funny man, and that was one of his greatest attributes. It was the way he could bring a team together with humour and laughter, and everybody knew when Alf was serious and when he was joking. So a lot of players couldn't understand Alf.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry, go.
Sorry, Joe. I was just going to say, and he still got it, Kerrod. I remember a couple of years ago, he got interviewed by someone, and they said, "How would your Brisbane Broncos team go against the current Penrith Panthers?" And straight away, he said, "I think we'd do them by 2 points." And they said, "Why do you think we'd be so close?" And he said, "Because most of us are in our early 60s now."
That's Alf.
He's still got the humour.
Yeah, he sure got it. And I don't know if you saw him recently after the game 2 win at Suncorp. He was partying until 5 o'clock in the morning with the players. So yeah, very funny.
Not surprised at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you have a strangest teammate that you played with?
Oh, definitely my brother Kevin. He was weird, mate. He's very weird. No, I didn't really have any strange teammates. I got on really good with all of them, and no one really sort of stood out as being a bit left field. But yeah, had some really good teammates. Yeah.
Yeah, great. The next question I had was, what was the favourite club game that you played in?
Oh, definitely the 1992 first grand final premiership for the Broncos against St George. Took us sort of a fifth year to win a premiership. We had a really strong roster from day one, but it just took us three or 4 years to get used to the week-to-week grind of which is now called the NRL. Back then it was called the New South Wales Rugby League. So, yeah, just the excitement of the game, coming back to Brisbane, having thousands of people lining the streets and in King George Square, the back of the Leafs Club, and we had a whale of a time. I never forget. We're on a big back of a truck at the Leafs Club. There's a big field there, and Elf decided to crowd surf. He jumps off, and they crowd surf him across to the edge. Kevy jumps off.
I remember that footage.
Wayne Bennett jumped off, and then big Glenn Lazarus, he jumps off because he's 120 kilos of crowd, so we can't catch him. And they parted like the Red Sea. Lazarus hit the ground and bounced up, and it was so funny. And Elf got to the side of the field, and they'd taken his shoes. He had no shoes to wear. So he put his footy boots on. We went to the Leafs Club, had a few beers. So, and the good thing of that was because it made him about 6 inches taller, so he could actually get to the bar and order a beer. So, yeah.
No, I love it, mate. I love it. What was your best or favourite Origin memory that you played in?
Well, I have to say my third game was at Lane Park, which is now called Suncorp. We beat New South Wales. I think it was 36-6. I got the man of the match. And back in those days, after the third Origin, they picked the Australian team, and I was announced as the Australian hooker that night to tour New Zealand in a week's time. So, it was a pretty good memory, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then talking about Australia, what was the best international memory that you played?
Oh, it'd have to be my first game against New Zealand. I think it was over in Christchurch from memory.
Yeah.
Test Boo. I remember Blocker Roach was one of my teammates, and I sort of obviously grew up watching Blocker, and he was a tough, man and very aggressive. And when I first met him, when the team first sort of met in the hotel, he was very quiet and very. I thought, geez, this can't be the same Blocker Roach that gets on the field and rips blokes' heads off. And we ran onto the field in the first game, and then the switch hit, and he started screaming. I said, "That's the Blocker Roach I know." So it's how he turns on and turns off when he gets on that field. And he was certainly good. It was good for us that day.
Yeah, we've heard some wild stories about Blocker. The last question I had for you before Craig's going to ask you some was, who was your idol coming through when you were a young bloke?
Definitely Wally Lewis, the King.
Yeah.
Every kid in Queensland that followed rugby league loved the King, and I'll never forget my first. I actually played against him in the which is the Queensland Cup back in those days, was the Brisbane Rugby League, and he played for Wynnum, and I played against him for the Ipswich Jets, and it was just a bit an awe of playing against him, and then to actually play with him at the Broncos in 1988. It was a surreal experience. I'll never forget a game down. We were playing Manly at Brookvale, and it was the fifth tackle. And while he was on the open and Alf was on the blind, I passed it to Alf, and I quickly learned that you pass it. If the King calls it, he gets it. And I said, "Sorry, mate." Alf, from then on, if the King calls it, he out trumps you. He gets the ball, mate. So I learned a lesson very quickly because the King gave me a good verbal.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, mate. That's great. We love it, Craig.
Obviously, lots changed in the game, Kerrod, since you finished playing. If you could change one rule in the NRL now, what would that be? Only one.
It's definitely the signing rule. How a player can sign for a club in November for 12 months' time. I just don't understand how a player can be negotiating with a club, and in 12 months' time still be playing with the same club now. Like I think the fans get disillusioned by it. I get disillusioned by it. I think there should be a transfer window at the end of the year. You can certainly talk to clubs, but you can't sign with the clubs mid-year. You sign with clubs between October and November. Or you can move wherever you've got to move to it in 3 or 4 weeks. And I just think it's better for all concerned. I think it's not a good thing for the game at the moment. It happens to every club. We've lost 2 players, the Broncos this year to the Redcliffe Dolphins, and it just happens all the time. I just think it's something we can certainly do without.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And another major change since you finished playing was, how do you think the game's being officiated these days? Also, we've gone from 1 ref to 2 refs back to 1. We've got the bunker. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm a fan of the 1 ref. I just think that there's a lot of they're going to get things wrong. We understand that. But I think they probably could get a bit more help from the bunker during the live games, and also the touchies. But the thing I can't really accept is when the bunker gets these decisions horribly wrong. We're all watching the same footage they're watching. I'm thinking, how the hell did they come up with that decision? It just baffles me sometimes. So my view is we should have 3 people in the box. I'd have 3 ex-players who would rule on how an ex-player would understand the game. I think sometimes too much the refs rule on the technicalities of the game, whereas they don't understand the game as much as the former players do when you're playing the game and how the game sort of evolves. So, and you often find if there's 3 blokes sitting there watching a game at night in front of the TV, they normally get the decision right. 2 would get it right, and 1 would get it wrong. So you get the right decision. I think 1 person can get it wrong, and they get it horribly wrong. So there's been a couple of howlers the last 3 weeks by the video ref. So I'd hate to see the grand final be officiated by a video ref decision that was horribly wrong. But I mean, they're under a lot of pressure. I understand that because the video. Yeah, I know the refs. I think actually, if you looked at all the decisions they make throughout a game, there's say out of 1,000 decisions, they get 999 right. So I think the refs do a pretty good job in general for such a fast game.
And I don't think it would help having the voice, coming through to them when they're trying to officiate a game, and you're talking to you, and Touchy's talking to you as well.
Yeah, I think just on that point. I mean, I remember Warren Ryan saying this point a few years ago when the video ref first come in. He said the ones we can get right, we should get right. The ones we can't, we move on. So if the video ref sees something that's horribly wrong and there's time to change the decision, change it. If it's exactly. There's that many sort of stoppages in the game now. You can. I mean, I mean, it's a fantastic game at the moment, but there's quite a lot of stoppages in the game. I mean, the actual ball's been played less than back in the 90s. So even though it's very intense and very physical, the game, it's not as many sets of 6 as it was back in the 90s. So, yeah.
Do you agree with the captain's challenge, or would you like to see that one go on?
Well, I don't think there's probably any need for it. If the video ref is there helping and watching and we could change a decision when it's wrong, change it, So,
yeah.
But I mean, I'm all for getting the correct decisions. If the captain's challenge gets the correct decision, well, I'm all for it.
It's got to stop letting wingers put their hand up to make a captain's challenge.
That'd be banned. Wingers and front lines will be banned.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, move on.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be much change to the top 8 at the end of the season? See much movement?
Yeah, well, not really. I think the current top 8 as it stands. Obviously, I'm going from the top. I think Panthers, Broncos, Storm. I think the Cowboys will sneak in here. The Warriors, the Rabbitohs, the Raiders, and the Sharks and the Eels. I think the Sharks, Eels, and the Raiders will fight for the other 2 spots. I think the Rabbitohs will sneak back into 8. I think the Warriors will stay there. So my top 8 would be Panthers, Broncos, Storm, Cowboys, Warriors, Rabbitohs. I'm going to go Raiders, Sharks. And the Eels will be there. I think Raiders, Sharks, and Eels will get that 7th and 8th spots. You agree?
I would like to see the Warriors go. I do agree. I do. Yeah. I got on the Dolphin bandwagon during the season. I thought it was great to see them do well. And their first game when they knocked off Joey's Chooks, I thought was a great start.
But, they certainly surprised a few. Obviously, Wayne Bennett, a fantastic coach and very, very smart at getting a team prepared. But they're just starting to struggle now with injuries and the week-to-week grind of the NRL. It catches up with you, and also their depth, isn't as good as other clubs, say, with the injuries, etc.
Yeah, the Roosters to win their next 6 straight and get into finals.
I think the Roosters, they're the biggest probably disappointment I think so far. Are. I mean, they could get on a running, but they're in all sorts at the moment, aren't they? So, which is very strange.
Just on that one, I didn't have this question, but it's a question that I've been asked for our podcast tonight, Kerrod. What were your thoughts, whether you've seen it or not, Brendan Smith joking around after the game with the opposition, having plenty of laughs after just getting touched up and basically what I think is a line through their season? Is it all good or is it shouldn't be done?
Myself and a lot of players from my area, we cannot believe how they joke with after a game. Like if we got beat, we were filthy. And like I remember Reece Walsh when he got obviously against the Titans when he got obviously 3 week suspension, but obviously he had a bit of an off game and we got beaten. So the Broncos got beaten. He was straight in the dressing room. He was filthy with his performance and with them losing. So I think that's how it should be. Ricky Stewart made a comment about 2 or 3 years ago. He said the modern player needs to hate losing as much as they love winning, and they don't hate losing. They don't show it. So I remember we used to play the Raiders, and my brother Stephen, we're as tight as, and if the Raiders beat us, I had trouble shaking his hand. I just was filthy, But I know the game's changed, and Generation X or Y, whether they are now, I mean, they're different to what we are, and I don't know. But I think that the public too sort of question, sort of thing, how can they be joking around after a game? I know they're good mates, but like I said, one of my best mates I was playing, he might be filthy if they beat us.
Do it in the sheds. It's not a good look on the cameras.
Do it in the sheds, I agree. Shake their hands, good sportsmanship, and get off the field,
So out of the top 8, the teams that you named, who's going to take it out?
I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say the Broncos. I think it's our year. I think the Panthers they're going to be hard to beat again. It's never been this open for such a long time. I think there's a number of teams in the top 8 can win it. Obviously, I think the Panthers are the favourites at the moment. They just keep winning and they just know how to win footy games. So, but I just think the Broncos are going along nicely. We've got a really strong roster from 1 to 30. That's what wins your premierships. We saw last week against the Bulldogs, we had 6 players out and they still managed to get a good win. So I think it could be our year. But I'm biased.
I'm
biased.
It'd be a very good story, and Kevy's certainly been through a lot, so it'd be well deserved. I think the last question I've got is somebody who was, for a short time in my life, adopted by the City of Churches. What are your thoughts on rugby league back in South Australia? Should the Rams bring back the Rams?
I've always said that I was very disappointed when the Adelaide Rams were a victim of the Super League war. I just think that the game was going nicely there. The Melbourne Storm managed to keep a team there in an AFL-dominated city. I truly believe that Adelaide and Perth could still have NRL teams, and one team in one city can be very successful. Look at the Brisbane Lions, the Sydney Swans, obviously rugby league dominated areas. So yeah, it's a shame the Rams went. I think they could have a team back there and be successful and have a lot of support.
Totally agree. Bring him back.
Bring back the Rams. Ah!
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's all the questions we have for you, Kerrod. So thank you so much for your time. We just want to, give a quick shout out to the Ruck Infringement listeners. You can listen to this when it drops on Thursday. Time of recording, that'll be tomorrow night, hopefully before the first game comes out. But yeah, keep listening. It's episode 55. It's going to be a good one. Thank you, Kerrod.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Kerrod.
No worries.